Welcome to Trigger Warning with your host, Chris Brumbles. Are you tired of the professional liars of fake news and far-left radicals? Are you ready for truth and common sense? The insanity and divisiveness of political correctness and identity politics have no place here. So welcome to Trigger Warning, where free speech is free speech, not racism. There are no participation trophies, so if your mind is weak, grab your binky, head to your safe space. Consider this your trigger warning.
Good afternoon, Columbia County, and welcome to Trigger Warning, where we embrace truth and common sense and reject political correctness and anti-American leftist ideology. When I study our founding fathers, I am utterly amazed at how brilliant our founding fathers were. When you look at the history surrounding our country, if you're honest with yourself, the only conclusion that you can come to is this country was truly inspired and conceived by divine intervention. The right group of men came together at the exact right time in history, with a set of ideals that would be fought and died for against the toughest military in the world, against all odds, that, pending the outcome, would enslave or kill them all, or produce the happiest, most productive, greatest, freest country that the world has ever seen, or likely ever will again. Men that were students of history and governments throughout the ages. Men that were wordsmiths. Many were polymaths, all in existence at the same time in history. Men of such magnificent brilliance that they set aside any egos that would have surely derailed their attempts at their goal of liberty and the most perfect union that human nature would allow. Our country has never been perfect, but it has always been the most perfect ever conceived. Let's look at just one of our founders, Thomas Jefferson. John F. Kennedy once held a dinner in the White House for a group of the brightest minds in the nation at the time. When he got up to speak, he said, "This is perhaps the assembly of the most brilliant, intelligent men ever to gather at one place in the White House, with the exception of when Thomas Jefferson dined alone." As brilliant as our third president was, I would have to agree with Kennedy. I am reading his writings as we speak, and they are some 1,571 pages long, and the pages are like thin rice paper, and the print is such as that you nearly have to use a magnifying glass to read it, even with reading glasses. The man accomplished things that are almost unbelievable, read many important books, and he still made time to write enough material that it takes weeks or even months to read it all. Thomas Jefferson was a very remarkable man who started learning at a very young age and believed that you only stop learning when you stop breathing. He lived accordingly and never stopped learning. He studied under his cousin tutor starting at age 5 years old. By the time he was 9, he was studying Latin, Greek, and French. By 14, he studied classical literature and learned additional languages. When Thomas Jefferson was 16, he attended William and Mary's College, which was a very prominent school at the time. Did I mention that at 16, Thomas Jefferson could also write Greek in one hand while writing simultaneously in Latin with the other? Talk about your multitasker. When Jefferson was 19, he studied law for 5 years. He started his studies with George Wythe. Jefferson started his own law practice at 23 and was elected to the House of Burgesses at 25. He retired from law at 31 and wrote the very popular Some Reviews of the Rights of British America. At 32, Thomas was a delegate to the Second Continental Congress. At 33, Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, the greatest human rights document ever written, with the possible exception of the Bible. At the same age, he took 3 years to revise Virginia's legal code and wrote a public education bill and a statute for religious freedom. We're just getting warmed up. When Thomas Jefferson was 36, he became the second governor of Virginia, succeeding Patrick Henry. By 40, he served in Congress 2 years. At age 41, he was the American minister to France, where with Ben Franklin and John Adams, he negotiated treaties with European nations. He was the first president's first Secretary of State at age 46 and became the Vice President and was elected President of the American Philosophical Society at 53. Jefferson was head of the Republican Party and drafted the Kentucky resolutions at 55. and became the third president of the United States when he was 57. By the way, while he was president, he learned more than a dozen Indian languages, and possibly he learned Arabic too. As we know, he read the Quran and warned that Islam was wholly inappropriate and incompatible with Judeo-Christian way of life that we have here and our Constitution. He doubled the size of our nation with the Louisiana Purchase at 60, and at 61 was elected to a second term as president. Thomas Jefferson retired when he was 65 and then got busy. He helped shape the Monroe Doctrine at age 80. At 81, he created the University of Virginia and served as her first president. When he died at 83, the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, John Adams died the same day with him. On July 4th, both of these great men, who almost despised each other in their youths, but grew to admire and respect each other in later years, died on the same day, ending a legacy. Wow, no wonder we have such a great country. It was shaped by brilliant men. So that's what we had. Today we have politicians, not statesmen, and many are doing everything they can to destroy what some of the greatest minds that ever lived created. Our elected employees only carry about 2 days, the days they are elected and the days they are re-elected. Honor is a thing of the past, and morals, they believe, are relative. They raise their right hand to take an oath, and then when they lower that hand, they grab a pen and sign legislation that violates that oath, committing perjury and, in my opinion, treason. We need to make Oregon great again, and for that to happen, we need to actually vote and get rid of people like Brad Witt, who are only collecting public welfare and representing themselves, not you. When Sad Brad is not voting to help illegal invaders, voting to destroy your right to keep and bear arms, to redistribute your wealth like stealing your tax kicker, he is voting against your religion and ownership of your body to force vaccination on you against your will. That is the antithesis of liberty and out of the government jurisdiction in the first place. I've come out with Witless's voting record many times before and will again before the election, but strongly encourage you to check out his voting record for yourself and see exactly how many votes you agree with. I have personally read his voting record clear back to 2008 and found absolutely nothing I agree with. That's why I say that he represents himself, not you. He has done absolutely nothing to help you unless you are a union or a criminal, and if you are a business owner, forget it. Bad Brad has had about 16 years to get it right and has done nothing but wrong. Let's fire Brad Witt in November, send him to the rocking chair, and put Brian Stout in instead. Let's get someone who will represent us. Today on Trigger Warning, we have one of, if not the greatest statesman in Oregon, in my opinion, in Representative Mike Nearman. We will also have Brian Stout, who will hopefully be our next representative come November. And Chris Christensen, who is running against Bomanichi, will also be joining us. So keep listening after the break. We have a great show for y'all. We'll be back in about 3 minutes with Trigger Warning.
Hello, all you triglets out there listening to Trigger Warning. This is where we reject political correctness and left-wing insanity, but instead, we embrace truth and common sense. You know, there is only one gun group in Oregon that will not compromise on your rights, and that is Oregon Firearms Federation. With all the trickery and evil bills that come from the supermajority in Salem, you need a friend who will keep you informed of these nefarious plans to plunder your rights. If you have not done so, don't delay. Go to OregonFirearms.org and sign up for the free alerts. It will cost you nothing, and you will get the truth on what's going on in Salem. There is absolutely no common sense in giving up your rights, so sign up for our email alerts, and if you want to donate, we won't complain, and it will be put to good use. Oregon Firearms Federation, the only no-compromise gun group in the state of Oregon, at OregonFirearms.org. Sign up today. The Columbia County Second Amendment Sanctuary Ordinance, Measure 5-278, will be on the ballot this November. Make sure to vote yes on Measure 5-278 so that you can help defend the rights of you and your children. Your rights have been under attack in Salem every session for as long as I can remember, and these attempts at control that will not affect criminals will not stop. So let's make our county a sanctuary for guns and pass the county law that protects your rights. Vote yes on the SASO Measure 5-278. While you are protecting our county, let's remember to fire Brad Witt, who only represents himself, not you. Let's elect Brian Stout to represent District 31, a family man and a businessman. He feels the same pains that you do. Let's send someone to Salem who is in touch with the people and will actually represent you. Elect Brian Stout as District 31 representative. Are you as tired as I am of the constant propaganda from the lamestream media? Would you like to get your news from a trusted source? How about two sources? Go to Redoubt News out of northern Idaho, where citizen journalists actually fact-check and do research. Redoubt News, Oregon, may even be coming here soon. Northwest Observer, another great news source that tells it like it is. Give it a try. I'm sure you will be impressed. It's time that we have truth in the news. So go to Northwest Observer and give Redoubt News a shot, and you have nothing to lose and only facts to gain. Don't forget to vote in the upcoming election. The majority does not win elections. The majority of the minority who votes does. Your vote counts, so make sure that your voice is heard and get out to vote. Now, back to Trigger Warning, where we reject political correctness and left-wing nut job policies, and we embrace truth and common sense. With your host, Chris Brumbles.
Welcome back, Columbia County, and we got some great guests for you today. The first caller we got coming in here today is Representative Mike Nearman. How you doing today, Mike?
Hey, Chris, real good. Thanks for having me on.
Good. Hey, I've been reading this news media lately, the Northwest Observer, and I heard you had something to do with that. Are you involved in that?
Yeah. So I'm involved with that media organization there. I wrote the software for the web page there. Back when I used to do honest work for a living, I used to be a software engineer, so I still got some valuable use to society here.
Yeah. So So why don't you tell us about Northwest Observer?
Well, so Northwest Observer was started by a bunch of people who just get frustrated with the usual coverage that news gets in Oregon from the likes of Willamette Week and the Oregonian and OPB and all the other big names like that. So they just decided that they just wanted things that didn't get covered that they wanted covered, and things that got covered where they weren't happy with the coverage. And so the Northwest Observer came out of that, and so far I think it's been a pretty successful project. The feedback we've been getting has been really positive.
Good. So before you explain your role in it, how can people get on there and read that?
Sure. If you just go to northwestobserver.com, and that's the main web page there. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Parler, and if you go to northwestobserver.com, in the upper right there, you can sign up for daily updates, and every morning in your email box, you will find the latest news from Northwest Observer.
Awesome. And what's your role there?
I wrote the software for the web page there, and I help out with the content a little bit.
Oh, okay. So, did you feel you felt obviously the reason I started this radio station is because I was writing lots of op-eds and they started getting censored, and I told them they weren't going to shut me up. So this is just this is not going to be your average fake news, right?
Right. So I think that it's born of the same sentiment there, and it's not. The Northwest Observer is not the Screaming Eagle right-wing news or anything like that. Mm-hmm. It's just trying to just be fair and just to present things. And I don't know, the way that the news media operates is that they find facts, and the facts that fit their narrative they put into their news and news reports. And the Northwest Observer does the same thing. We find facts, and the facts that we find interesting, and the way that they're presented or whatever, and we put those into our news feed. And so it's not any different than the rules are for the regular media. It's just that we might find a different set of facts interesting and relevant. Okay.
Well, did y'all do any reporting on the fires?
Yes, we did. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you find anybody setting those fires out there?
We did talk about that, and of course, you know that there were several arrests made for arson. I'm not sure that anybody's been convicted yet, but we did cover that, and where there was, I think there was a kind of a attempt with the news media and with the political elites to minimize any kind of idea that there was any kind of arson going on or anything like that, or certainly not that Antifa did it or anything like that. We were just reporting the facts, just as people were arrested or anything like that. One of the things that I know, we had one reporter working that beat, and he was trying to cross the arson arrests with the arrests in Portland for rioting, and I don't think he ever came up with any positive matches on that. But
Right.
So those are the kinds of things we're looking at.
Well, I noticed that I don't watch Glenn Beck a lot, but somebody sent me a video of him. He actually had police reports from mostly Antifa, clear from Washington to California, setting these fires. He had the actual police reports. So I thought that was fantastic, since all the major, lamestream media was reporting there were no arsonists.
Right, and so again, their narrative is that all the problems in the world are caused by global warming, and the solution to global warming is bigger government. And so that's kind of their narrative, and that's the way they report the news. And so
redistribution
I don't
of your wealth.
Somebody put up a meme on Facebook. It says, "This is the face of global warming," and it was a picture of the mugshots of the arsonists. And so I don't know. So the news is kind of skewed when you get it from them. And so if you want a little bit different flavor on your news, you can go to the Northwest Observer.
Yes, sir. Well, it's what's amazing about this anthropogenic climate change is it stops on one side of the road, and the Canadian border. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about the Freedom Foundation. You're a senior fellow there. What is that all about?
Sure. So the Freedom Foundation is a organization that kind of has a central purpose, and that is to it's a First Amendment organization, and what we're trying to do is just to notify public workers of their rights, with regard to their unions. So that right now, no public worker has to be a member of a union as a condition of their employment, and nobody tells them that. Their employer doesn't tell them that, and their union certainly doesn't tell them that. And so that's our job, is to tell them that. And so we do that kind of work there, and I'm proud to be supporting their data operation nationwide. And like I said, they had me do more work in Ohio and Pennsylvania and a little bit in California, but not very much in Oregon. But so I'm pretty busy there, and I think that's a great thing. If we get one, me as an elected official, when I get $1,000 donation to my campaign, I'm very grateful for that, and that really means a lot to me. But every union member that we get to drop out of their union is about $1,000 non-donation. It's $1,000 minus from the other side, and so we have some days where we do tens of thousands of, and I'm putting this in scare quotes, in dollars, of opt-outs of unions there. So anybody who's a union member who wants more information on this, a public employee union member who wants more information, can go to optouttoday.com.
Yeah, could you repeat that again?
Yeah, it's optouttoday.com, and that's where you go to find out how you can leave your union. And if you're a union member, if you're a public employee and you're a member of the union, you're paying probably about $1,000 a year in union dues, and you can get that money back. You get it back in your pocket there, and it doesn't change your contract, and it doesn't change your status with your employer. It doesn't change your representation or anything like that. You're just not paying those dues to the union. And those dues to the union, they go automatically almost 100% to Democrats. So if you're a public employee and you're a member of the union, you're funding Democrats.
Yeah, no kidding. And which really aren't Democrats anymore, as far as I'm concerned.
They're
far left radical
extreme
Marxists.
leftists in some cases. Yeah.
Yes. So, how successful has the Freedom Foundation been? You've been pretty successful, haven't you?
Yeah, we have been, and but we have a hard time keeping up with the growth of government there. But we've been very successful. As you know, there was a U.S. Supreme Court case. It was just about a little bit over 2 years ago. It was Janus versus AFSCME, and it was where the United States Supreme Court said that you can't be required to be a union member there.
Right.
And so yeah, we have lots of people contact us every day about how to get out of their unions, and we help them. And if the union causes them any problem, we have a team of lawyers, and they help them with their problem there. And we've sued the union several times, and we've won. So
awesome.
We've been very successful.
Awesome. Okay, now for the golden question. Emergency sessions, how many has there been?
So these are special sessions. So we've had two special sessions so far. So the first one was kind of to, I don't know, it was mostly law enforcement reform there. I wasn't happy with that. I wasn't happy with when all of the law enforcement reform bills, except one, they all had a tribute to Black Lives Matter at the top of the bill there. And I said, that's it. I don't appreciate legislation that it has a tribute to a Marxist terrorist organization.
That's right.
And so I won't be voting for that bill. If you want me to consider that bill, take the tribute off, and we can open up a conversation. So that was the first special session. The second special session was to, due to the economic downturn based on the government's response to the COVID outbreak, we had to shuffle a bunch of money around. And so in that was in the second special session. And so really, we didn't have to do any really deep cuts because we were able to, go get some money out of this fund and go get the rainy day fund. We had some federal money and all that kind of stuff. We had to allocate that. So the cuts during that were not really all that painful cuts. It's not like people are going to feel that. That we are going to have more cuts, and the next round of cuts is going to be something that takes a bite out of government, and so it will be felt. So brace yourselves for that. If you're a fan of smaller government, you're going to get. You be careful what you wish for. You might get it there because we're going to have smaller government brought to you by the government response to COVID. You notice how I phrase that too, as I say, it's not an economic downturn due to COVID. The COVID outbreak didn't cause the economy to be harmed.
Right.
It was the government's response to the COVID outbreak that caused the economy to be harmed.
I call it the government response to the media-driven scamdemic.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's no virus out there. I'm just saying I don't know anybody I know one person who's had it out of thousands, and he was an old guy, and he didn't die. But
yeah, and so when this started in March, we didn't know how bad the epidemic was going to be, and so some of these very drastic measures. I don't know if you remember back in March, the governor basically said it's a stay-at-home order for 2 weeks, and so we were kind of locked in our houses for 2 weeks. Do you remember that?
Yep.
So that was a pretty drastic thing. But now at that time we didn't know. We didn't know if all humanity was going to be wiped off the face of planet Earth. I mean, I didn't think so, but we just plain old didn't know. Now we know better. We know a lot about this disease. We know how contagious this disease is. We know how deadly this disease is, and the answer to that is not very. And so we have some things that are smart to do, like we need to protect people that have underlying conditions and elderly people and things like that. And but other than that, there's no reason why we can't kind of return to normal.
Right, and I'm all for just telling people what the risks are and let them do their own thing. But
yeah, and if you want to wear a mask, you can wear a mask, and no one will stop you.
Well, thank you, Mike. We're going to break here for commercial for a minute, and we'll be back in about 3 minutes with Brian Stout.
Hello, all you triglets out there listening to Trigger Warning. This is where we reject political correctness and left-wing insanity, but instead, we embrace truth and common sense. You know, there is only one gun group in Oregon that will not compromise on your rights, and that is Oregon Firearms Federation. With all the trickery and evil bills that come from the supermajority in Salem, You need a friend who will keep you informed of these nefarious plans to plunder your rights. If you have not done so, don't delay. Go to OregonFirearms.org and sign up for the free alerts. It will cost you nothing, and you will get the truth on what's going on in Salem. There is absolutely no common sense in giving up your rights, so sign up for our email alerts, and if you want to donate, we won't complain, and it will be put to good use. Oregon Firearms Federation, the only no-compromise gun group in the state of Oregon, at OregonFirearms.org. Sign up today. The Columbia County Second Amendment Sanctuary Ordinance, Measure 5-278, will be on the ballot this November. Make sure to vote yes on Measure 5-278 so that you can help defend the rights of you and your children. Your rights have been under attack in Salem every session for as long as I can remember, and these attempts at control that will not affect criminals will not stop. So let's make our county a sanctuary for guns and pass the county law that protects your rights. Vote yes on the SASO Measure 5-278. While you are protecting our county, let's remember to fire Brad Witt, who only represents himself, not you. Let's elect Brian Stout to represent District 31, a family man and a businessman. He feels the same pains that you do. Let's send someone to Salem who is in touch with the people and will actually represent you. Elect Brian Stout as District 31 representative. Are you as tired as I am of the constant propaganda from the lamestream media? Would you like to get your news from a trusted source? How about two sources? Go to Redoubt News out of northern Idaho, where citizen journalists actually fact-check and do research. Redoubt News, Oregon, may even be coming here soon. Northwest Observer, another great news source that tells it like it is. Give it a try. I'm sure you will be impressed. It's time that we have truth in the news. So go to Northwest Observer and give Redoubt News a shot, and you have nothing to lose and only facts to gain. Don't forget to vote in the upcoming election. The majority does not win elections. The majority of the minority who votes does. Your vote counts, so make sure that your voice is heard and get out to vote. Now, back to Trigger Warning, where we reject political correctness and left-wing nut job policies, and we embrace truth and common sense. With your host, Chris Brumbles.
Well, we're back, Columbia County, and we just listened to I think the busiest representative in the state, Mike Nearman, and by the way, a statesman, not a politician, in my opinion. So we're going to come in now and we're going to talk to Brian Stout, our hopefully next representative of Columbia County, somebody who will actually represent us. So Brian, thanks for being on the show again, the second time I believe. And so Witless has an F rating with the Oregon Firearms Federation. He voted yes on 4145, and he introduced a bill 3054, which never went anywhere because the Senate and the House walked out. But he wouldn't even sign the petition for the SAPO or the say-so. You signed both of them, right?
Good morning, Chris. Yes, I actually did sign both those petitions.
Good for you. And you have been endorsed by Oregon Firearms Federation. And so obviously your stance on guns is going to be good for us, right?
I am endorsed by Oregon Firearms Federation. Thank you. I've received the highest single rating a non-sitting individual can of a B+. I understand my opponent has an F due to his voting record on gun issues.
Yes.
I understand that we as citizens have a God-given right to protect ourselves. And in this day and age, you see what's going on with the rioting and things happening downtown and de-arming our police and taking away any non-lethal forces and thing they can do to protect the citizens and themselves. Mm-hmm. We as the citizens need to be prepared to take care of ourselves. We have a right to protect ourselves, our family, our children, and believe it or not, even our property.
Yeah. That's funny you say that because I just looked at Idaho has this castle doctrine. They have a real castle doctrine, and it says that basically you can shoot someone if they're breaking into your house, your car, or attacking you, and the police have to automatically assume they were trying to hurt you or do damage to you or something. So you can't get sued for that. Yeah, so I would love to see a castle doctrine like that in Oregon someday. But right now, depending on where you're at, like downtown Portland, you don't even have a right to defend yourself anymore because, well, look at Mike Strickland. Okay, so I'm going to ask you some questions that your opponent has voted for and see how you would vote.
Great, let's go.
All right. So he voted on the anti-religious and private property, anti-private property forced vaccine bill. He voted yes on that. How would you vote?
I'd vote no
Yeah.
on forced vaccines. We have a system that currently works well where you as a patient can work with your doctor, whether it's you or your children or whatever the situation is, to work with your doctor to determine whether you feel the vaccines are safe or not safe for you. I think it's ridiculous to say that you can broadly force one type of medication or one type of vaccine across an entire spectrum of people, or all people for that matter, and not have some kind of consequences. So I've got a problem with that. I think our medical freedom laws need to be strengthened where we have the choices to do what we need to do. As long as we're not endangering others, there shouldn't be any question on this.
I agree. And, you know, you own your own body. All property comes from, all rights come from property, and your body is your number one property. First law of nature, the right to protect yourself. So he voted on the anti-business cap. Well, he didn't really vote on the. That was a, what do you call that? A tactical vote. Tactical no vote on cap and trade, but he did vote against it. Blocked it from going to committee 5 times. Would you vote for cap? Oh, and then he came out and said he had a better redistribution plan for us. He believes in the Marxist religion of anthropogenic climate change, which I think if he would have actually opened his mind and came to our climate summit, he would have been proved wrong. But anyways, how would you vote on cap and trade if presented for in front of you?
Well, I'm diametrically opposed to Brad on this very single issue. We can back up and start at the bottom and work back to where you started. Obviously, I think that we as humans in society can do a better job, and we're continuing to do a better job to take care of our resources, our climate, our waters, our streams, our rivers, our forests. I don't think there's a one of us in here that says we want the world burning down and we want dirty waters and we want global warming. But there's absolutely zero proof, true scientific evidence, and this has been over and over and over again, that humans are actually going to cause climate warming over the course of history. The numbers that they use and the way that they fear-monger us into this are skewed. I've spent hundreds of hours researching, listening, reading, and watching this. So I don't say that just because I'm diametrically opposed. I don't believe we as humans really can cause that. Not saying that we shouldn't do a very good job in managing our resources, like I said, and doing things to lower our carbon footprint, if you will. But not all things are possible, and you can't just take a broad pen and Salem and say we're going to ban everything across the board.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So
Well, their math is flawed to begin with, and so are their, whatever they call those, their math is off from the beginning.
Yeah. So I do have a problem with the cap and trade. I'm endorsed by Timber Unity. Timber Unity is the one group that stepped up in opposition to cap and trade and said, no, we're not going to allow this to happen. And they were the single largest voice in the state of Oregon regarding this issue, that people, to be honest, Oregonians were not paying attention to what was going on down there, what they were about to do, and how they're about to tax literally hundreds of businesses completely out of business and put our timber industry out of business, maybe our truckers out of business, our loggers. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. It was a horrible bill. There's no question that I would stand against that any day of the week.
So I'm liking what I'm hearing so far. He voted to steal the Oregon kicker, and I don't know. I still don't know how that. I thought that was in the Constitution. I don't even know how you did that. But that's anti-private property as far as I'm concerned. What's your vote on that?
Well, this is a bigger issue with when we, the people, have voted on something, it's gone to the ballot, it's been in, it puts in law, and then by executive order or stroke of the pen or other legislative tricks, they come in and say, nope, we're changing it. We're going to steal from this budget, move to this budget, do this. The will of the voters doesn't matter. This goes on all the time, and it's part of that is we have no balance in Salem. We have a supermajority of Democrats. We have a Democrat governor, Democrat mayors running the cities. We have a one-sided system of government. So the voters constantly, I hear people going, well, why can't we stop this? Why can't we stop emergency clauses? Why can't we stop them stealing our kicker? Well, we have no resources or tools to stop them. They run everything. They run the courts. They run the judges. They run it all. So it is deadly, deadly critical this time in this election cycle. All elections are important, but this is really, really critical for Oregon that we return some other people from the other side. We need to turn some common sense back to Salem and get some balance in there where we can actually work on these things and slow some of these things down.
I agree. So he voted for the indoctrination of putting transgender studies in the school, the governor's bill. He voted yes on that anti-sanity bill. I'm kind of leading the witness, but how do you feel about that?
When we talk about our education system and bills like that, I think we're way off track even focusing or writing bills that do that. We are now currently 47th in the nation in education in the state of Oregon. We have a horrible problem. Why are we not focusing on fixing our education system, providing more access to schools, whether it's charter schools, trade schools, different things, getting kids back in a position where we're learning? Once again, look at who's been running the state, look who runs the schools, look at what's taken place. 47th in the nation. It's absolutely unacceptable in my opinion, and it's going to take radical change and radical thinking in order to turn this around. We don't need to be looking at all this other stuff. These kids need to learn to read, write, do math, and be able to function. They don't need to be taught social or sexual stuff in kindergarten, which is like some of these bills are introducing through the education system right now. It's absolutely ridiculous. I'm not okay with it.
Yeah, you can't have good one world order puppets if you don't indoctrinate them, though. So Brad voted, let's see here, anti-free market and anti-private property. He voted for the hidden sales tax, or the cat tax, whatever you want to call it, HB 3427, which I believe is going to destroy a lot of businesses if it hasn't already in this state. How would you vote on that?
Absolutely not. Brad has not found a tax he doesn't like. The cat tax is another great example of that, and there are businesses that literally cannot function. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. We've seen these stories and hear these stories across the state of Oregon. The most recent tax, Brad just voted on a cell phone tax.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just every time we turn around, we're being taxed. And whether it's my opponent or the other legislators in Salem, this is a constant drive, and there's no one there to stop it and slow them down. The corporate activity tax is absolutely devastating. I have spent my life in small business, helping small businesses, and the stories I hear and the complaints and the anguish over how am I going to deal with this, what I'm going to do. There's no way. I've got to lay off staff. I've got to lay off employees. We're having to liquidate our buildings and move into a rental in a smaller space. I've heard it time and time again. Mm-hmm. This bill is causing more problems than the general public even realizes.
And let's just get this one thing straight to the people out there. The corporate activity tax is a misnomer. It's not going to affect the corporations as much as it is going to mom and pops, in my opinion.
Well, there's many. Let me speak to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Originally they came out and couched this. Oh, you've got to do over $1 million in sales. Well, that's gross, not net. It doesn't take much as a small business, whether even a photography studio or a small metal fab shop, to do $1 million in sales in today's economy. So it really does hit a much broader range than they originally sold to the American people here in Oregon.
Right. And if I remember reading the bill right, you actually have. So you can if you sell $1 million, you can either write off 35% of your cost of doing business or 35% of your employees, which is ridiculous because it might cost you $800,000 to make $1 million. You still got to pay taxes on all that.
Right. It makes no sense at all.
So, national popular vote. He wanted to disenfranchise our voters and violate the Constitution, and he voted for that.
National popular vote is a bigger issue, more than we have time here to get in today, but currently in our economic state and our situation here, I'm not a huge fan of the national or popular vote right now. I think what we have is working, and we need to stick with it and work within those realms to fix the problems we have.
So I just got two more questions for you, and we got about 30 seconds. So driver's license for illegal invaders. It was voted down twice by the people, and he sponsored two bills. And, of course, he didn't vote last time. Another tactical vote. They didn't need it, but would you vote for that?
I think we need to have a much stronger driver's license registration system to begin with, period. Whether it's, you can call it whatever you want to. We've got some issues there that need to be worked on, and we have a constitution, we have laws that certain things are supposed to happen in order for you to vote. Oregon has gone down the path like many other states and degraded that and taken it to the point that basically those laws don't apply. The voting system's open to anybody, which is open for fraud. So it becomes a bigger issue than just being an illegal alien or not being documented or being here on a visa. It's part of a bigger problem.
Well, thank you, Brian. We're gonna have to take a little break right now, and we will be right back with Chris Christensen.
Hello, all you triglets out there listening to Trigger Warning. This is where we reject political correctness and left-wing insanity, but instead, we embrace truth and common sense. You know, there is only one gun group in Oregon that will not compromise on your rights, and that is Oregon Firearms Federation. With all the trickery and evil bills that come from the supermajority in Salem, you need a friend who will keep you informed of these nefarious plans to plunder your rights. If you have not done so, don't delay. Go to OregonFirearms.org and sign up for the free alerts. It will cost you nothing, and you will get the truth on what's going on in Salem. There is absolutely no common sense in giving up your rights, so sign up for our email alerts, and if you want to donate, we won't complain, and it will be put to good use. Oregon Firearms Federation, the only no-compromise gun group in the state of Oregon, at OregonFirearms.org. Sign up today. The Columbia County Second Amendment Sanctuary Ordinance, Measure 5-278, will be on the ballot this November. Make sure to vote yes on Measure 5-278 so that you can help defend the rights of you and your children. Your rights have been under attack in Salem every session for as long as I can remember, and these attempts at control that will not affect criminals will not stop. So let's make our county a sanctuary for guns and pass the county law that protects your rights. Vote yes on the SASO Measure 5-278. While you are protecting our county, let's remember to fire Brad Witt, who only represents himself, not you. Let's elect Brian Stout to represent District 31, a family man and a businessman. He feels the same pains that you do. Let's send someone to Salem who is in touch with the people and will actually represent you. Elect Brian Stout as District 31 representative. Are you as tired as I am of the constant propaganda from the lamestream media? Would you like to get your news from a trusted source? How about two sources? Go to Redoubt News out of northern Idaho, where citizen journalists actually fact-check and do research. Redoubt News Oregon may even be coming here soon. Northwest Observer, another great news source that tells it like it is. Give it a try. I'm sure you will be impressed. It's time that we have truth in the news. So go to Northwest Observer and give Redoubt News a shot, and you have nothing to lose and only facts to gain. Don't forget to vote in the upcoming election. The majority does not win elections. The majority of the minority who votes does. Your vote counts, so make sure that your voice is heard and get out to vote. Now, back to Trigger Warning, where we reject political correctness and left-wing nut job policies, and we embrace truth and common sense. With your host, Chris Brumbles.
Welcome back, Columbia County. We just had a conversation with Representative Mike Nearman and future Representative Brian Stout, and we are now here with Chris Christensen, who is going against, I think, the AWOL, Bomanichi. How are you doing today, Chris?
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. And I just want to say a great shout out to everybody out in Clatsop and Columbia County and anybody else that may be listening to this show. And I appreciate the opportunity. So thank you. Beautiful place to live. And I would consider it an honor to be able to represent the fine people of the 1st Congressional District. And really quickly, just want to say, just define that. That's Clatsop, Columbia, Yamhill, Washington, and the western part of Multnomah County.
Right. We also put this on Redoubt News, so it goes nationwide. So hopefully, maybe some of them people will help you out. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself for those people who may not know who you are.
Great. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So, again, 5th generation Oregonian, have a long history of great family and pioneering kind of history here in Oregon. So I appreciate the place that makes the people first and foremost. Went to grade school first I went to kindergarten in Tigard, out on Pacific Highway, and then we moved into Portland, Northwest Portland, and I went to school there at Chapman Elementary School in the Portland public school system and got a fine education, but that was a long time ago. Ended up going from there to, Chapman is a feeder into Lincoln Elementary School, where I actually spent a couple of years with Ted Wheeler, same year, same grade. And then I moved on to a Jesuit high school out in Beaverton, or Southwest Portland, where I graduated. So that's a little bit about me. I spent my first, 18 years here for the most part in Oregon, and I've been back and forth. I've lived in California, but mostly here in Oregon for the most of my life. But I have a lot of experience from other governmental systems, and coming back here, I thought it was just really important for me to sort of step up to that role of stewardship and try to throw my hat in the ring and make the right choices for the region.
Good. So I ask every candidate that, just starts running, would you obey? Okay, oath of office, is that a ritual or is that your solemn oath, your solemn word?
Yeah, it is a great question because that's what it all boils down to. So short answer is it's solemn oath. And people underestimate an oath. But what's interesting about the congressional oath of office, if you look at it, it is very, very similar to the oath of office that any new immigrant takes. And, of course, it's kind of expected that any citizen of the United States, natural born, is also under that same oath. So I take it very seriously, and I also extend that to other people, particularly immigrants who have the exact same oath, almost word for word, that a congressional representative has. So I take it very, very seriously. I want to uphold the Constitution and protect this country from all enemies, foreign and domestic, whatever that may bring. Yeah,
so I agree. I've had a couple other people say that, and they didn't stick by it, but I'm hoping you will. So there was a guy named
Milton. I hope you'll hold me accountable.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. There's a guy named Milton Friedman, and he said that you could not send good guys to Congress and expect good results because you got so many people that are just hounding on them and pounding on them and wanting deals. And he said that what you got to do is make it so that it's politically profitable to do the right things. But I do think we need good people that will obey their oath in there to begin with. So that has two sides to it. So I'm an independent candidate. I'm sort of a grassroots candidate. I make my own decisions, good, bad, or otherwise. I don't have any corporate interests or any controlling, even political party, really. I'm a Republican through and through. I have Republican ideals, but have some conflicts with some of the party politics here in Oregon. I think we can do better. I think Brian mentioned that. But when it comes down to what I'm here for, and I want to just go through that oath really quickly. The oath says, I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and I will and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter. So help me God. So I hope to take that oath on January 3rd. Absolutely. I hope you do,
and
too.
Abide by it.
I hope you do, too. Obviously, she's got a lot of money and a lot of special interests behind her, but hopefully the people, I think that this November is prime time for a reckoning in Oregon and Washington. So hopefully people will realize that and get rid of her. So what, in this kind of climate, it's crazy. It's crazy, man. I can't imagine wanting to run for Congress. What made you run?
Well, it's funny because I think Mike said back in March, when we had, remember, this is around the 6-month anniversary of that 2-week lockdown that we were supposed to have here. So I started this race back on March 10th, and the COVID hit March 13th. So we hadn't seen any of the Breonna Taylor or George Floyd or any of the protests in the streets. So a lot of things have happened in that short period of time. But that's exactly why I'm the perfect candidate for this. At a time of change, you really have to be able to adopt change, right? A paradigm shift. We see it in education right now. Somebody, I think Mike or Brian mentioned earlier, education in schools, right? The school system, parents are having a really, really hard time trying to figure out what they can do in schools. And long term, we do need to look at charter schools. We do need to look at trade schools. We do need to look at homeschooling. So we need to provide the tax money that's currently going to the school unions back to the parents so they can provide the choice that's right for them and their family. So that's just one way that we can shift with new thinking, and the president is already ahead of that. So as a first-term congressman, I'm just going to support one of the greatest leaders in the free world. He's got some great policies to solve the problems of this country. The problem in Oregon is we have 5 congressional districts. Only 1 is Republican. So we've got 4 people who have spent the last 4 years fighting the leader of our country, and that has been detrimental to our state. When we have, assuming the president gets reelected, if we have a congressional representative that is of the same party, we will be able to have all kinds of relationships and communications with the White House and with the administration that we don't currently have, that will go to directly solve the problems in Oregon. The wildfires, the reconstruction, the infrastructure, the bridges, the law and order issues. All these things are on the table, and they're all things that I'm ready to take on from day one.
It's funny you said if he gets reelected. I think that before this happened, it would have been such a landslide as to probably even beat Ronald Reagan's landslide. And I do think he's going to win, even though they are cheating. It's obvious. Now, I don't know if you've seen the video out by Project Veritas that came out, I believe, yesterday, but they have proof that Omar, I call her Ilham, just Omar, is out buying votes. Have you seen that? I mean, paying $200 to $800 for votes.
Well, you see all kinds of things in election year, and that's a great point, because, we all have to kind of pull ourselves back from what we see in the news and what we see in the social media, and we have to be our own filters. And I get it from the right and the left, and I just want to point out that as a representative of the 1st Congressional District, I represent everybody, right? Everybody,
right.
Republicans, Democrats, males, females, black, white, brown, everybody in this country, and I have to do it the best that I can. But the alternative to me would be to keep the incumbent, and from a gun perspective, some of the things that the new administration could be proposing and Bonamici would be supporting are really dangerous categorically. I mean, they're making significant changes. They're proposing significant changes to our lifestyle that would just be unworkable. So we have a lot of independent voters, and we even have Democrats, and I appeal to them to come over to a sense of reason, adopt change, and let's see what we can do to move the country forward and the state forward together. But I need those votes, because if I don't get the votes, people are going to vote for the incumbent, and she's what I call a wall hugger, right? She's a solid vote for anything Democratic. So Second Amendment is a perfect example of where she's going to go with her political preferences over the overwhelming needs of the people that she represents, particularly in Yamhill, Clatsop, and Columbia County.
Yeah. I want to remind people, though, that who don't know, that the Second Amendment does not give us our right to keep and bear arms. It actually changed the government. It's actually like a thou shalt not touch, and they have absolutely no authority to write laws on that. So what they are running on, the Democrats, they're not even Democrats. They're being controlled by the far left radicals. And, well, they're actually Marxists trying to destroy this country from within. They're running on plunder and theft of our rights. And I can't imagine.
Well, it goes down to, how do you once you get in a position where you make laws, it goes back to your question about the oath. Are you going to uphold the oath, or are you going to basically take this as an opportunity to write your own ticket, right? Mm-hmm. And just again, I like to get into the words because words matter. So the Second Amendment, you're right and correct. Thank you for correcting me. Says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And so I'm more of an originalist, right? I mean, that was the Second Amendment right behind the free speech and the First Amendment. So it's not going anywhere if I get elected, and nothing's going to change, and there are going to be no infringements whatsoever on. In fact, I would do something more the opposite and try to get a more comprehensive national law that would allow people to conceal carry weapons from state to state without having overlapping guidelines and regulations.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you very much, and you've been a great guest. And so we're going to have everybody give their final thoughts now. Can you take about 30 seconds to tell everybody, what website to go to or phone numbers to reach you at or whatever?
Okay, yeah, thank you. Again, I appreciate your time. For me, it's my website is www.cchrist2020, so it's cchrist2020.com, and then I have a Facebook page as well. But just remember, a vote for Chris Christensen for Congress in the 1st Congressional District means lower taxes. I'm pro-law and order. We're not going to defund the police. I'm pro-Second Amendment. I'm pro-school choice. And I'm pro-economy and keeping our jobs local.
Well, thank you very much, Chris. And Brian, could you give everybody your stuff?
Thank you, Chris. I just want to let people know why I'm running. I'm an advocate for small communities and our personal freedoms. I believe in limiting increased government, more taxes, and stopping extreme radical policies is a priority. I want to protect our natural resource industries, and Oregon's rural way of life is essential. And I also value our first responders, and law enforcement is critical. I'm approachable and available. I can be reached anytime on Facebook through social messaging. It's Stout at State Rep. We have a website, www.stoutforstaterep.com. Our phone number of the office, if you want to leave a message on the campaign, is 503-318-6927. And once again, our website, stoutforstaterep.com. So either way, the best thing is probably Facebook. Go out to Facebook, hit us up on Messenger there. We follow that daily, and we have daily posts going up there with what we're doing, where the campaign's out at, and what we're trying to get done.
Thank you, Brian. Mike, are you Representative Nearman? Are you still there?
Yes, I am, Chris. Thanks, and thanks for having me on. And you guys are really lucky in Columbia County that you have such high-quality people running to represent you.
Thank you.
And I think Chris Christensen's going to make a great member of Congress, and I look forward to serving with Brian in the state legislature. Remember, you can find out all the news at www.northwestobserver.com. If you want, you can go to my website, too, if you want to find out more about me, nearmanfororegon.com, number 4, or spell it out. Either way, it'll take it. And thanks for having me on.
Hey, you know what? You're the hardest worker in the state. God bless you for being on, everybody, and thank you. Well, folks, there you have it. We had 3 great guests on Trigger Warning today. I hope you all learned something, and I hope you will get out and vote this year. Get your friends and family out to vote. It's never been more important. Please remember to vote yes on the Measure 5-278, the Second Amendment Sanctuary Ordinance, to protect the rights of your family and yourself. Let's fire Brad Witt and replace him with Brian Stout, somebody who will actually represent you. Let's vote for Margaret Magruder so the far-left radical nutjob Marxist Brandy the Dead Dudzik doesn't hold a county office or a seat. And while we're at it, while we're defending ourselves against the evils of Marxism, let's vote out Alex Tardif, who has been the wolf in sheep's clothing, and vote in Casey Garrett for County Commissioner position 3. Consider voting for Jeff Goodman for Treasurer, Kim Thatcher for Secretary of State, and closer to home, let's vote for Clark to be the Circuit County, I think it's Circuit Court Judge. And, of course, let's vote in Chris Christensen to get rid of Bomanici. I'm sure you already know that we need to give President Trump another term, as the other side has an ineligible VP candidate and are running on a platform to plunder and enslave you. Thank you all for listening to Trigger Warning. Next week, my guest will be Missy Fox, who has an interesting story to tell you all. As always, let's keep Columbia County normal and sane. Catch you next week on Trigger Warning. God bless.
You've been listening to Trigger Warning with Chris Brumbles. You can email your comments to kohi.radio@gmail.com. And listen again next time for Trigger Warning with Chris Brumbles.